let's talk about width here. So let's go ahead and create a new element. I'm going to style it first, and then I'm going to give it an element. So let's select a div that has a class of half width. And here we can say the width is going to be 50%. And I can actually read this and create something out of this. Now watch this. This is really cool. In VS Code, I can do div dot half width and then hit tab, and it wrote my class out for me. So basically I just wrote CSS, hit tab, and it wrote out the HTML for me. That's really cool. That's called an emmet abbreviation. This is half width. And so when I refresh the page from the last lesson, doesn't look like much is happening, but in my inspect tools here, in my developer tools, you can see that it's actually taking up half the width here. And if I scroll all the way down, I can select that inside here, and it's only taking up 50%. And I can change that too. Let's go ahead, change it to 90%. And now you can see it's taking up 90%. Now I find that hard to work with, so what I like to do is add a border. So I do border 1 pixel solid red, and this just shows me what I'm working with here. So when I refresh a page, it went back from 90% to 50 because I was just fiddling around in the developer tools, and it doesn't save your work there. So I changed that width back to 50%, gave it a border, and we can see what we're working with here. Now we can also give this a width of something a little more solidified. So 50% is 50% of your browser. So if you shrink your browser down, and I'll show you what I did there. Let's go back, right click, inspect, and I'm using Google Chrome for this. Click this little icon, toggle device toolbar, and we can see when we toggle this that the width is always 50% of the page. It's never ever going to change. It's always going to be 50% of the page, even if that page is super tiny. And this is 300 pixels wide, so this is a very small mobile device. Or we can say, let's say 500 pixels. And when I refresh this, and this is pretty hard to see, I apologize for that, it's always 500 pixels here. Always, always, always. And so when I do this, we can see it's always 500 pixels. And when I do this, the box itself actually isn't getting smaller. My viewport is getting smaller, but watch this. When I get small enough, it bumps on over. So that's really hard to see. Kind of a terrible example, but there are two different ways to specify a width. Now, a thing to know about width is you need to have display inline block or display block set, one of the two. It's important that you have one of the two set, because if you said display inline and you set a width, VS Code is already complaining here. Let's go ahead and get rid of that view. Inline is only going to take up the minimum amount of width that it possibly needs. It's not going to understand that you want a width of 500 pixels. So to get around that, we do inline block. That works. We can check this out. We can see that it only takes up 502 pixels on my screen, or we can do block. Same thing, 502 pixels on my screen, but it also takes up this extra white space there. Now we can do the same thing without a div. We can change this to a span. Let's get rid of display block so it's normal thing, and let's go ahead and change this to a span. So span, half width, 500 pixels, 1 pixel solid red border. Well, a span is an inline element. We can tell it's an inline element because the width is not being set here. We can also tell that it's an inline element because if we go here and just hover, it's using the minimum amount of space possible. But we can overwrite that. We can say display inline block or display block, and this will now accept width.